So we're now on the assembly part of our Viking chair build. What you need for this part of the build are, of course, your pieces of lumber. You're going to need some pipe clamps, both the small ones and the larger ones. We would normally just use these, but I only have so many, and with a large class we're going to try to limit the number of these and then use the little bit longer pipe clamps. They both do the exact same thing. These clamps, however, have feet on them which suspends the project that you're gluing off the table, which is really nice because you can turn your handles without them touching the table, and you don't need a special gluing table. So if you're going to buy some pipe clamps, these are excellent. We've used these for many many years, but the one drawback is once you put them on the table, it's hard for them to stand. They want to fall over just with a little bit of a tip. They fall over very easily, and then your handle generally touches the table. I don't know if you can see that over there, and you can't clamp them, so you got to put them over the edge. So if you have the option, you want to purchase these types of clamps because they're suspended, they've got a good base of support, and these handles don't touch. So excellent clamps. They work very, very nice. And even if you just have two and use the rest of them, then these are already suspended, like so, or they can go underneath, and you can pop them up like that. Okay, so that way these clamps do the job of keeping your board off the table. So these are called pipe clamps basically because they're on a pipe, and you can put them on whatever length of pipe you want. We have very long ones over there that are probably 6-7 feet long, and then we have ones that are even shorter than this. So these are probably my favorite type of clamp because they're so useful. They have such a great clamping pressure to them. They have a lot of uses, so we generally use those the most in the class. So set up for your project. First of all, we want to talk about how to set up the lumber to glue it together. Now we know we want to put the A2, B, and A1 with the slats, the 1/4 inch walnut in between, and on this longer one, the C2, the D, and the C1 with the 1/4 inch slots. But what we haven't talked about yet is grain direction. You want to flip your grain direction so that over time your boards don't warp, and if they do, they kind of equalize each other out. So when you check the board direction or grain direction, you want to take a look at the end grain. So I'll just lift that up, and you want to look at the end grain on your boards. Can you see that? Awesome. So some boards will have kind of a frown, some will have a bit of a happy face, and some will be what I call neutral. So if we take a look at this board here, if I look at that grain on there, it's kind of at an angle going this way. It's not really happy or sad. I don't know if you can see that there. It's what I call a neutral. It can be any way that works. This board here is generally what I call a happy board. It goes like this, and the grain direction looks like that. So that's a happy board. And this one here, this one goes mostly down, so I would call this a sad board right there. If you flip it, you can make it happy. Neat trick. So if you take those boards, you want it to be happy, sad, happy, like that, to neutralize them, so that if you do get some movement and some warpage, one might warp one way, the other one might warp the other way. So here I have it. Sad, happy, neutral. Doesn't matter. Perfect. And then of course my small pieces of walnut in the middle don't matter because they're so small. So that's how I'm going to set that up. After I've done that, I just put them side by side, and I take and I strike a line through it like this, maybe a double line or a triple line, and that way when I go and I take them apart for whatever reason, I can always put them back together. Okay, so those lines should line up like that. Now, a little difficult to show you that, but you can see how they're marked. So that's ready to be glued. Now, I don't want to apply the glue yet. I want to actually dry fit it before I put the glue on the boards. So I'm just going to take a look at the grain direction here, and I've got a neutral, a happy, and a happy. So I'm going to just flip this board like so. Oh, I've got an issue here. I've got this. I want to put that always on an outside edge because I can then cut it off. So I'm going to take that and put this one over here. And sad, happy, neutral, or mostly sad on that. That's what I want. I will put that strike through here just so we know that those boards go together. And now I want to take my clamps and dry fit it. So I just take and make sure the edges are relatively flush. And I can take and flip some more clamps under here. I'm going to show you how these clamps work. If you take this clamp here, it's kind of like a trombone. You press this on the bottom, this little tab, and I can push this forward and backwards. Let it go, and it locks into place. Okay? You can do it on the top as well. Bottom or top. You want your, usually I like to have a little bit of tread here, or threads I guess we will say. Just a little bit, maybe a little less, so that I can go other direction, but mostly you're tightening it. So I usually have about that much of the threads, and then that's ready to go. I want to assemble my clamps in a direction where I've got some on top and some on the bottom. So what I'm going to do is put a clamp on the bottom, clamp on the top, clamp on the bottom, clamp on the top, clamp on the bottom, and on the top I can just use these. So these clamps are all ready to go. So let's dry fit it. Actually, we'll just put all the clamps on. I like to have all my handles in one area towards me, if possible. And then I want to just snuggle those up first of all, get them all nice and snug. And just like tightening lug nuts on a vehicle, on a tire, you want to just alternate your pressure. So we're going to do one here, one up here, maybe one over here, here. And we just slowly get them a little bit tighter. It's like playing a musical instrument. And once we have them all nice and tight, we take a look for gaps. So, nice and tight, I want to look for gaps in between my boards. Okay, so we'll put that there. And what you're looking for is a pencil, and I'm just going to see if I have any. I really don't have any to show you, which is a super good thing. But can you see that in the camera? Okay, so in between these boards, you're looking for any gaps that you have. And if there's any gaps whatsoever, you can take this back to the table saw and just shave off a little bit of one of the boards, bring it back over here, and put it back together. Dry fit it always before you put the glue on, and check. We'll do the same with this one. We'll check that out before we glue it together. So I'm happy with how all this fits together. I have my grain direction in the proper place. My clamps are ready to go. Now I can apply glue. Okay. So to apply glue, the trick to applying glue is you don't want to put too much and you don't want to put too little. And that really just takes time to master. But I'll show you approximately how much glue I put on the project. So here's my wood glue. You can find these in the shelf along the wall. There's quite a few of these. So get that glue started here. And if you take this, can you take a look to see if I'm in the... Are we good? I've got to go lower? There we are? Okay. So, you see the board? Right on. I've got my assistant daughter here to help me today. So if we take this glue here, we want to think of a spaghetti, a piece of spaghetti. That's about how much glue we want to put on the board. Okay? On a 3/4 inch to a 1 inch board. If we put any more of that, then it just goes out the edge. And there we go. And it just is a waste. So we just get that put on right in the middle. Okay? Like that. Okay? And we do that on all of them. Now what you might have seen me do is I just flip up my boards. So they were down like this. I just flip them up and I work with gravity. So I'm going to do that one. Now this one's going to go on there, so I don't need to put glue on the one side, just on the one side here. And I'll do the same thing. Get that line of glue on, right down that middle part. And then I'll just place that there. Then I'll flip this board up. Same thing. Line of glue. And this one, line of glue. If you don't have enough, you can always add. Okay, so that goes in there, that goes in there, that goes in there. That should be it. The last one you don't need any glue. So we just take this here and we put it on there and we just kind of slide it back and forth and just put a little bit of pressure on it, slide it back and forth to even it out. Sometimes if you really wanted to even it out, you could flip it and do it this way. And you can see there's a nice glue pattern on there. And you can do the same thing. I liked it this way, so I'm just going to leave it that way. If you spread it out the way I'm doing it now, you really don't have to flip it. Okay, we're going to put that second board down. Same thing. Just going to slide it back and forth. You can go up and down a little bit, doesn't hurt. And then the walnut strip. And lastly, this board. Good to go. Now, if your boards are really twisted and warped, we can put boards on the side with some clamps to keep it all nice and flat. For this video, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to, because all my boards are sitting nice, I'm just going to go ahead, put a little bit of light pressure on there, pushing down towards the pipe clamps, put a little bit of pressure on it. And then I can go ahead and put these longer pipe clamps on. I just need to push down my walnut strips. They're a little bit warped. And I have everything ready to go. So gluing is time sensitive. You've got to, once you start gluing, you've got to finish gluing. You can't wait. It sets up pretty quick. It doesn't dry pretty quick, but it sets up pretty quick. So you can't stop. If you have any issues, you can quickly try to fix them. I have this side nice and flush. This side is not as flush just because it's rough cut boards. We're going to cut the final length. Now we're good. Everything's set. I'm liking what I'm seeing. I always take a look underneath to make sure that things are sitting fairly flat. And if they're not, I'll just loosen, push, tighten. Just snug. Loosen, push, tighten. And sometimes if it's not enough, I'll actually just take a little C-clamp and I'll clamp down my board to the pipe clamp just to bring it down. I use my pipe clamp as kind of my straight edge to keep things nice and straight. But this is sitting nice, so I'm ready to put some pressure. So I'm just going to put some pressure on these. Again, just rotate around. Sometimes people have patterns for this, but I'm not going to really have much of a pattern. Just randomly go around, up, down, maybe. That could be your pattern. And snug them all up. And you want to put quite a bit of pressure on this. Don't forget to put your name on this piece. So I'll put my name on here, Mr. Cardinal. It will all get planed off in the next video. So before you put your project into storage, you're going to want to take some of that glue off so that you don't have to sand it off or plane it off later. So you just take a chisel and a piece of paper towel and just run your chisel along those lines, and just take some of that off, and then just squeeze it into your paper towel. You'll have to do the same for both sides, probably more on the bottom. So just flip it over. Yeah, there's quite a bit more here. Generally, that's how gravity works. You can see, maybe you can see, there's some more glue on this side. So it's easier to take it off when it's wet, and it's not doing anything right now, so you might as well get some of it off. So I like to just use a chisel, scrape that off. And then you can go ahead and put it in storage. There's room. So we pick this whole thing up and put it underneath the table. They will fit, and they will not be a tripping hazard and not take up extra space. Valuable real estate. So I'm just going to take the camera now. I'm just going to show you quickly how much glue you should have kind of coming out of the joints. Just a little bit of glue, and then we're done. We'll do the exact same thing to this board. Take and let it dry. I like to let it dry and set up overnight, and it's generally cured overnight. Some people say it's an hour and then you can work with the wood, but what I like to do is set things up where I just, and it works good with your class too, right? Set it up, glue it in one class, and then the next day we can take it to our planer and continue on.